Hey, there's Herman. Hi, Herman.
Yep,
Uncle Herman has just joined us.
Yep, Herman and Audrey are there.
Yep, and there's Neil. Hi, Neil.
Oh, Neil and Amy.
Zach.
Yep.
And Zach Paul.
Zach.
Hi, Zach.
Hi, Zach.
Oh, oh, Pam.
Yeah, Pamela. Yeah.
My goodness. So nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Zach is here because he was one of my first babysitters, and so I need to make sure I behave myself.
And I was also one.
You're
Not at all.
Well, that's true, actually. Pamela might have even been before Zach, for that matter.
Yes, probably so.
When Burr was listening to train songs
Yeah.
at night to go to sleep to, I don't think you had any choice. I think you had to do train songs. But there was a series of records, and when they were over, Burr would say, "Start them again."
Yeah. Do you remember Britt?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is she on the call? Will she be on the call?
I don't think so.
No.
Where is she now?
She spent her life in Ottawa, Canada. And her husband was a very bad Parkinson's case. And so she lost most of her life to taking care of him until he died.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
she had a very nice job with the government, which, you know, I saw her about, Barb, like 15 or 20 years ago.
Wow.
She stopped in and visited us in Seattle. So I did get to see her later in her life, but I don't know if she's still with us or anything.
Could I address something to Susanna Juni?
Yes.
Hi. I saw Elliot's name on the list, and I remembered him from when he was a professor of microbiology at Emory and one of Peter and Babette's very good friends.
That's right. That's my father. My father's not alive anymore.
I'm sorry.
He's been gone for 4 years.
Well, a wonderful man. I
absolutely. I think of him
affection.
constantly.
Yeah.
Were you a student of his?
No, I was a student of Peter's. Peter and Babette's.
Got it. Got it.
It's like Audrey's there running the computer with Herman.
Oh, yeah, with her mask on.
With a mask, yeah.
Very good.
Is your mother still alive, Pamela?
Yes. My mother is no longer with us.
I see. Okay.
Wow.
Right.
Hi, guys.
I'm here
The
too.
kids are here.
Hey.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
And Neil. And Eric. Well, we're all kids. Everybody wave.
The good news is you're all on now and there's no more participants waiting. I thought there are two things we could do. I could show you a few pictures that I have just for fun to start it. And then we could go around the room if you wanted. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure.
Yeah, it's good.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, look at all that.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, fantastic.
I just wanted to show a couple.
Oh, this is good.
There you go.
There we go.
Whoa.
And the picture I really wanted to show you, since we're celebrating Babette's life, is this one right here. How about that?
Oh, my goodness.
This is
Hey, it's Fletcher.
This is Babette and her brother Fletcher.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
God, that's
I don't know what, maybe
They're in
before,
Woods Hole.
during, is that Woods Hole?
That's Woods Hole. That's
It
Woods
could
Hole
be.
Water Tower, and that is the
Great.
Dolphin, the boat behind them.
All
Look at,
right.
she was a student here.
Yep.
Oh,
And
my
she
God.
was famed. She was famed for going between classes and labs on roller skates.
On roller skates, yes.
Oh
So
my God.
if you don't know Pamela, maybe you should introduce yourself to everyone before you go on.
I'm Pamela Nelson. I am the daughter of Leonard and Ann Nelson. Leonard was a colleague of Babette and Peter's, and that was at Emory. When they moved on to Brown, I happened to move on to Pembroke the same year. And so Peter and Babette became sort of surrogate parents, and Babette became quite a mentor for me and remained that way. I was a little young to be going to college, and I was totally socially inept, and she was kind enough to give me a bedroom on the 3rd floor. When I couldn't stand at the dorm anymore, I would come and visit
Oh, man.
at President Avenue.
That's great.
Could I,
Nice.
could I
Very nice.
channel Rachel and Marilyn for 1 minute and just point out the fine muscular definition in Babette's legs. You can tell she was a roller skater. Rachel and Marilyn, being PTs, would have been quick to point that out and say,
Oh, that's right. Very good. So I just wanted to say that that this is right before, you could say the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end. But Peter and Babette met and fell in love in Woods Hole. Well, they met at the University of Minnesota, but then they fell in love at Woods Hole. So this must have been right around that time when they got together.
How old is she there, you think?
20s?
Yeah.
20,
early
let's say
20s.
20, let's say early 20s, yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Now, how do I get
Maybe
out?
mid-20s, but yeah.
And then this is a picture of our family. This is Babette. Can you all see this all right?
Yeah.
That is
Oh,
adorable.
wonderful.
So this is Babette as a young mother or something. And
Something.
this is me as Peter Johnson remembers me.
Yes.
And
That's how I remember you too.
and Anne as Sally probably remembers, and Susanna. And then this is a family called the Pierces. I can't remember all their names, but I remember Marjorie was the first girl that I ever had a crush on. She was like a year older than me, and I could not ever get her out of my mind for several years. But anyway, they were colleagues at Emory.
Burr,
Yeah.
look at the tennis shoes you're wearing.
Yes.
Yeah. Very
Around that time, your mother sent a whole box of clothing that you had outgrown to me, and I'm betting those are the shoes.
Yeah, great.
That's great.
This is more recent times. We have Margaret Mills on the phone with us today, and this is Marilyn Anderson.
I thought that was Marilyn.
No longer with us. Dee Dee, who I don't think is on the call, but we'll be in touch with her at some point. She still lives in Orcas. And of course, that's Babette. I don't know who these people are.
Oh,
but-
Diane, the one with the bangs is Diane Boatler, Dr. Diane, who
Oh.
practices in ECU in the emergency in Bellingham, but she still is an Orcas resident. She commutes, God help her.
Wow.
And that's the proprietress of Bilbo's. Julie, yes.
Whoops. Oh, yes.
Oh,
This is
boy.
this is a picture of Babette right after she broke her ankle. And you can kind of see in her face that she doesn't really know what's going on. And it was very interesting that she went from being reasonably with it, living in a assisted living place, but being pretty independent, you know, getting her own supplies at the pharmacy next door and things like that. And after she was in the hospital for about 3 days, she didn't remember anything.
Oh,
And she was in a memory care unit for the following 5 years, up
gosh.
until last week.
Was that when she was in the university facility?
Yeah, she was she was in University House for 1 year, and then she broke her ankle, and then she moved to the memory care unit at Ida Culver in Broadview, which is near here. Anyway, that was her transition photo. Of course, her other best friend in her life was
beautiful.
Pat Canoyer, and this is one of the last times that Pat was here to visit. Pat Canoyer was her best friend in junior high school in Kansas City.
Oh my God.
And she was a dancer, let's just
She's
say.
a ballet dancer, yeah.
Ballet dancer. And then after high school, she decided to become a nun. And she was a nun for most of her life and spent a lot of time in New York being an anti-nuclear.
Okay, he may not have seen it.
Okay, somebody else tell the story while I let in Victoria Parker.
Oh, hi.
Maybe we could go around and
Yeah, let's do
introduce
that.
ourselves.
Let's do that now.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I'll go because I'm Anne. I'm Babette's daughter. For that, I'll introduce Ed.
Yeah.
This is Ed.
Hello.
And
Hello,
he
Ed.
has a giant shiner because he's tripped over a rug and fell into a cabinet. It wasn't me, I promise.
A likely story.
Oh no.
I've
Oh,
heard that one before.
yeah, sure. Let's see the
What happened
shiner.
after several weeks of confinement?
Yeah.
Next, we have Laurel and Eric.
Hi.
hi guys.
Hey,
I I
Say who you
I
are.
am Babette's no we're not. I'm Babette's granddaughter and this is my husband Eric.
Hello?
And your favorite memory of Babette is?
The thing that stood out to me when I thought, what is a memory of Beetle, the thing that came to mind instantly is not the most amazing, but it was when I was, I think, like 17 or 18 years old, and we were visiting on Orcas, and she said, "Well, you've really filled out."
That is Babette.
Oh, wow.
Now that is Babette. That's great. Okay, next on my list is Margaret Mills.
Oh Lordy, several things occurs in the "that is Babette" theme. She was a wonderful guide when she was a dean and a retired dean on Crane, and I was an unemployed PhD and hanging out and wondering where my next job was coming from. It ultimately did, and I got a job offer from Pomona College to go be Dean of Women, which was a strange and wonderful thing, and because it was a great place. But I didn't know that going, and so I, of course, we were over at Marilyn and Rachel's having dinner, as I recall, and Babette said, "I have two pieces of advice for you. One is get regular haircuts, and the other is watch your language." There was a generational difference, and she did not, she gave us good advice, let's put it that way. But she also was so incredibly generous. One of the things that she did when she moved from Crane to Orcas, we had been sort of sharing her boat because she liked to have somebody else in it when she was going somewhere, and that worked out well for me when I was here on Crane. Anyway, so she said, "Would you like the boat?" And she made me this absurdly small offer of a very fine boat, which I'm still using. It's never had a name other than the boat. However, I had decided some years ago to rename it, or at least to name it, which I hope is not bad luck, because it can be bad luck to rename a boat. But it is now officially named the Water Beetle. So this company has to ratify the name and make sure that it's not bad luck. But anyway, it's a lovely little runabout that they bought new in 1970 to share with their friend who had the house next door.
Could be this.
Wayne Thornburg.
Wayne, yeah.
Wayne Thornburg.
Okay, wow.
So it's having its 50th anniversary this year, and it's still floating.
Is this the boat?
No, that's a smaller boat.
That's a little one, but good try.
This one is huge. It's 17 feet long, and it has canvas on top, so you don't get rained on. It's great.
Oh.
Andrew, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you
Would you like to go next?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can see you too.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, I'm Pat and Herman Shipley's son. Pat was Peter's sister, so that makes me Ann and Burr's cousin. I like to say I have many fond memories of visiting Babette and Peter and Crane Island. I guess the last time I saw Babette was a few years ago, 15, I think. I visited her on Orcas, and she gave me a tour of the. I spent there a few days there with my wife Laura, and she gave us a tour of the island. I got to visit Burr at the same time after visiting her on Orcas, and she was a gracious host, and I just have a lot of fond memories of her and Peter growing up and visiting them up on Crane Island and Orcas.
Thank you. Next, Audrey and.
Hi, I've got Herman here with me. So
Herman
is Babette's brother-in-law.
Right.
And I'm Babette's niece, Andrew's sister. And I guess I would echo Andrew on the memories of Crane Island. I have a few pictures I can throw up later. I think the one year our family made the big trip out there in the mid-70s, we were put to good work. Not me personally chopping wood, but my brothers. And then hauling, I guess, gravel for some of the paths. So hopefully we left it a little bit better than it was when we got there.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. On the cousin theme, Neil, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, great, fantastic memories, of course, growing up, and she and Peter would visit Fletcher and us, and just fantastic memories of the rapport she had with Fletcher. It was just really fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, I got to go up with Fletcher a couple times when I was in high school, and we spent several weeks on Crane, and just fantastic memories, at that time. A lot of projects, like you just said. I think it was free labor or something. I'm not sure exactly the purpose. Just great memories of those trips, and then again later on with the rest of our family, we got to go. And always love both of them to death.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I'm Eric Barnes. This is my wife, Veronica. And I believe I'm Beetle's first cousin once removed. Dad and Beetle were cousins, first cousin. So I remember Beetle and Peter all my life. Fond memories visiting the Stewart family in Providence way back in the day, and visiting them on Crane as well. Veronica and I and the girls do long camping trips. And one event we ended up setting up our tent in Beetle's backyard, and that was a lot of fun. My memory of Beetle combines a couple of her features. One of them is a sort of instinctive motherliness. She's just a very caring person who is quick to take you under her wing. And I remember how encouraging she was toward me when I was young, and I was interested in science. And of course, she and Peter were both very encouraging of my interest in science. But she also had this instinctive scientific quality about her as well. She looked at science as the thing that would better human life. So I think of her as the scientist mother, in a way. The combination of maternalism and scientism kind of embodies her warmth and her intelligence and her caring, and just a lot of gratitude for times with Beetle.
Chris, did you go yet?
I'm Chris Barnes. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'm Eric and Neil's sister. And like Eric was saying, Beetle and Fletcher were our dad's first cousin. So our families saw each other a lot growing up. I just have this really particularly funny memory of visiting her in Crane, and it was towards her last years on Crane. So Burr or Ann, how long ago was that? Before she moved over to
early aughts, so probably 2000, something like that.
And she had this exercise bike in her house on Crane that she said she never rode. And so I work in rehab, and I was always talking about exercise. It's kind of just an exercise nut myself. And I remember I gave her a bunch of exercises she could do, as I'm sure other people had done. And she was kind of a little bit sarcastic, like, so you think this will change my life? Because she was worried about falling and stuff. And I just said, well, yeah, I think it'll change. Being encouraging. And then a few weeks later or something, I got a phone call from her, and she said, Christy, I just don't know what happened. I want you to tell me what happened. I was riding my exercise bike, and I looked down and realized 45 minutes had gone by, and I have no idea what happened to that time. She was excited. She was animated. And I said, well, Babette, you were in the zone. You're an athlete, you were in the zone. and that one particular memory just really cracks me up. I remember Babette just always being curious and following, like every other thing she said was, isn't that wonderful?
Isn't that neat?
Isn't that neat? Thank you. That's probably the more correct word. Yeah. Isn't that neat? Be a little shake of the head. Neat.
Yeah, that was a Fletcherism, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Anyway,
she did continue to ride that bike after you did that. She was
that's
about it. It made a big difference for her, so that was great.
That's awesome. I'm so happy. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't thank you enough for that, Chris. She was having a lot of trouble walking with knee pain. And after she started riding the stationary bike, her knee joint strengthened, and she started getting more exercise. Her whole lifestyle, her whole quality of life improved for I'd say at least 10 or 15 years, because she started riding that bike 20 minutes a day.
Wow. That makes my heart feel good.
It's a real lesson in the importance of physical fitness.
That's really sweet.
Robin and Megan, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi. Well, I thought we were appreciating some of the items that we have from Beetle, so I thought I'd just give you a little tour. I don't know if you might remember this lamp from her house.
Oh yeah.
We use that every day very much. We also have this Native American heron/crane.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't know if you can see that very well. There we go.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to get a lot of her items when she moved. So a lot of.
Rocking chair too.
Oh yeah, her antique rocking chair. that's her rocking chair that I think belonged to her parents or her.
Yeah, that's my picture.
So anyway, yeah, I my funnest memories were going up by myself. Maybe once every few years, I'd go for about a week to Crane Orcas, and I think Beetle was just really let me do my thing, and we just had. She was so interested in all different types of science and the world, and so I think that's the main thing I remember. Do you want to tell your story?
Well, yeah, I think I've heard some other people kind of echoing this, but I think I just kind of appreciated her curiosity and kind of her some lightness. I think when we went to visit her, it was always really just like a nice relaxing experience, kind of creating that kind of lightness space. And then I feel like every once in a while she would take me off guard with a funny joke that I wasn't expecting. And I think one of the best examples I had of this was this time when Robin and I went to visit her on Orcas Island, and there was this bakery there that made this kind of dessert called monkey bread that we would often go get. And so one time we'd gotten it and we were sitting there at the house eating this monkey bread and wondering why did they call this monkey bread, kind of coming up with some theories. And then she just all of a sudden very seriously said, "It's because there's ground up monkey bones in it." It just took me a second. We burst out in laughter. It was just so unexpected. And I feel that kind of, I don't know, I think that that kind of thing happened a lot with me, with her, kind of just kind of unexpected little fun things that happen.
Yeah. By the way, this is Megan, my wife.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't met her.
Hi.
Thank you. Zach, have you gone yet?
No. In 1960, I was a second-year medical student at Emory in Atlanta, and I did a lecture, and I enjoyed the way his mind worked and was sort of attracted to him, and so I asked if I could work in the lab for the summer. So I did, and Peter and Babette shared a lab, and Britt was there, the famous Britt. And I then took a year off to work in the lab with Peter, and that was a very influential year because I decided to leave medical school and go to graduate school. And that happened as a direct result of Peter, because he said, and Babette as well, Peter said to me, "You need to go to Woods Hole." He said, "That changed my life. It'll change yours." And sure enough, I went off to Woods Hole, where Pam's parents, Lynn and Ann, took care of me, were my parentis in locus. And I decided that summer research was for me, and I was going to leave medical school and go to graduate school. So this was really a career turning point. What I remember about Babette is her incredible enthusiasm for science. She just enjoyed it so much. And also her very sharp mind. She was enthusiastic and skeptical, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
You didn't say anything lightly around her that she would jump on and say, "Well, no, that's not true, so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so." And I remember this wonderful story she told that when she was a student, must have been in graduate school, but I'm not sure. And I think her advisor was Burr's namesake, Burr Steinbach. Isn't that correct, Burr?
Yes.
Yeah. And so at any rate, she went to it was a microbiologist named Van Neal, who taught a famous summer course in microbiology at Pacific Grove, where Stanford has a lab. And so she went to take this course as a student, and I think maybe even an undergraduate, early graduate student. It was very early on in her career. So one of the exercises they did, she said he would give a lecture and then he'd wheel in this equipment and you'd do an experiment. And so at one point he came in and he said, I want you to learn to observe. And so he gave everybody, each person a slide, and he said, I want you to tell me what you see under the microscope. It's a bacterium or if it's India ink suspension. And people said one thing and the other and the other and the other. And finally it came to Babette and she said, it's both, she said. Your India ink is contaminated with bacteria. And she loved that story. And she would then give her cackle, that famous.
Yes.
And it just, for me, epitomized her curiosity, her energy, and her sharp mind. And she picked it right up. She wasn't going to take the party line. So anyhow, she was a wonderful person. I lost contact with them for several years. I didn't see them very often, but then my wife and I visited them both on Crane and on Orcus after Peter died. And times it was just wonderful to see them. And the time on Crane, once Pam's mother, Ann, was visiting also. So we got a chance to see her again. So anyhow, a wonderful lady. And I just think was an inspiration to me always.
Thank you, Zach. Pamela, do you want to go next?
Sure, I do. I was thinking of two things. One, I think by the time that I visited her up in Washington, she was on Orcus. And I was attending a radiology meeting in Seattle and was there for an extra few days with my husband, who was not my husband at the time. And we arranged to go see Beetle. And it was terrible weather. It was really, really foggy. And so I had hoped to spend the day with her, and that wasn't happening. And we decided to go on a seaplane. And I turned to Kit, my husband, and I said, this is incredibly expensive. It's ridiculous. But years from now, I'm not going to remember what it cost. And it will make a huge difference to me in my life to go and visit Babette. And it was a delightful visit. She took us in her boat and, gave us tours, and that was quite wonderful. Now back to Providence days. When I was a sophomore in college, I had a boyfriend who I just dearly loved, and he was out in San Francisco, and I spent a semester setting tables at Pembroke for dinners to be able to afford to fly out to San Francisco. And it was a big deal. And I went at Christmas time, and I flew out, and within a day or two, he said, this isn't going to work. I'm sending you back home. Oh. And I went back home to Babette, just in tears, absolutely miserable. And I wouldn't talk about it. And Babette put up with that for a very short period of time. And then she came to me and she said, I realize you're not going to talk about it. So I'm going to tell you what happened, and then you'll be able to talk to me. And so she described what had happened. And it was very liberating. And I was very glad years later to find out when she became a dean of students, because she was a wise woman. Mm-hmm. And that's what I have to say.
Wonderful story. Yeah.
Don?
Babette, when we moved in here and we built sort of thing, she was a somewhat eclectic neighbor for us, but she always liked to call me up and have me go up and, I think I smell gas. Or her Bose radio that sat next to her exercise bicycle would get off station. And I think she really just wanted to visit, sort of thing. But nonetheless, but the funny one to me was, I think it was the last winter she was up here. And we had our daughter here. I think it was probably Thanksgiving. We had our daughter here and a friend we call him Rent-A-Son, Walter. And Walter and us were in the kitchen, and Walter was frying bacon. It was breakfast time. And lo and behold, Babette drives down the driveway. She never drove down our driveway. It's very steep, but she did. And she came in, and turned out she had her locks changed at the house. And she got out to the garage, and the door locked behind her, and all the keys were inside. And she came in and she was very insistent that I call the fire department to break into her house. And I couldn't dissuade her. So I finally called them and they basically said, sir, that's not our business to break into houses that aren't on fire. Any rate, by this point in time, she became, I don't know if she had a lifelong view of this or not, but she seemed to be really in love with bacon. So she was just bonding with Walter as he's frying bacon and eating bacon. She lost kind of interest in the house. Now, fortunately, the door latch had actually been put on backwards on that door from the garage, so I could jimmy it open with a credit card, and came back down. And she was kind of disappointed I got into it because she didn't want to leave the bacon at that point in time. She was the funny lady. I really enjoyed visiting with her all the time.
She, aside on bacon,
my fondest memories are just going up and having tea with her. She would, you know, she had that little still sitting on the kitchen counter, and she distilled all her drinking water, and it was, yeah, that was just always amazing to me. And the jokes and we just solved all the world's problems sitting around drinking tea and eating cookies. So just fun. And then when we bought our motorhome, we didn't have anywhere on our property at the time to put it. And we asked if we could park it in the field at the bottom of her property. And she said, no, put it up here by the house. There used to be one when I bought the place. And so we had it up there for a couple of months anyways, while we were getting organized for a trip. And she started referring to it as her lawn ornament, big lawn ornament. So yeah, she would come and visit while I was cleaning up and getting it sorted, and we just always had fun, always laughing and having fun. So I miss her a lot. Got a great picture of her on the refrigerator eating a batch of Dawn's rhubarb crisp that she always claimed was the best batch. So that was yeah, she was a sweet lady.
There's a side of bacon. She trained at least 2 restaurants on Orcas to make bacon waffles for her. They were not on the menu.
Molly, do you want to go next?
Sure. I met Babette probably in 1995 or so after I moved to Orcas Island. She was a very good friend of the Orcas Center board president, Marilyn Anderson, and Marilyn's pal, Rachel, with whom she lived. And so my main interaction with Babette was Thanksgivings, which we had probably, I don't know, maybe 10 of or so. And one of the things about Thanksgiving with Marilyn and Rachel was that there was a talent show, which was mandatory. Everyone had to participate. There was no getting out of it. And it filled everybody, I think, with a little bit of dread, except the musical people, who, of course, were always at the ready. But Babette, being Babette, she just opted out. She didn't care that it was mandatory. she just sat in her chair and simply didn't do it. And I don't think I ever saw anyone so confidently withstand the pressure of Marilyn Anderson as Babette did. She had such a lovely independent streak, and was so, of course, brilliant and always taking things in, always other directed, so generous in spirit and so supportive of us. My husband and I had adopted children through foster care, and always taking me aside on Thanksgiving to find out how that was going and reiterate her support for that decision. And then it was so lovely because my husband's name is Peter, and she would always say, of course, Peter was long gone by the time I got to know her, but she would always say, oh, I'm just so glad you got a Peter was just as great as my Peter was. The way she just talked about them, you could just tell the oh, you could just tell the absolute adoration and quality of the relationship that she had with Peter. Even though I never met him, I never saw them together, I never even saw a picture, but wow. Anyways, she was just such a strong, quiet, respectful, supportive, just lovely, lovely person. I miss her very much.
Thank you, Molly. Mariah, do you want to go next?
Sure. Gosh, it was great to see Molly. I haven't seen you in years, Molly. I don't know if you even remember me.
I know.
Children's House,
Yeah, you look
Research
great.
Children's House. Yeah. Well, like Don and Maria, I was a neighbor of Babette's here on off of the Shaner Armstrong Lane, and we're this really lovely, cozy little neighborhood where we just enjoy each other's presence. And Babette was a wonderful neighbor and friend. And at one point, I had actually finally retired from my kind of big professional life and was just sort of picking up little odd jobs. And she said, would you do my garden? Because I love to garden and have a big garden. And I thought, well, I'm not a professional garden, but it is kind of a sweet little garden, and it will get me up there to see Babette all the time. And I actually think, just as Don said, you know, if she had a way of getting somebody up there, she'd get you there. And then you'd always have these just great conversations. And she was always handing me $100 bill to make sure she was ahead of time with a little bit of gardening I did, you know, and I'd say, wait, Babette, wait, let me do the little bit of work for you. You know, she just, and then she told me how she always carried cash when she went to town because she didn't want the small businesses to have to pay that extra credit card charge. You know, she was sort of, you know, because it costs a lot of money. All, you know, the world of credit cards is the way it goes, but small businesses are often just eking it out on Orcas Island. And so, you know, she just had these small and wonderful ways of thinking about other people and being generous of them. And then, like Maria, I would go have tea and we would get into a discussion about something scientific. And I was always learning from Babette. And it was a sad day when she left her home and left our community here, and yet wonderful. Somebody's drawing something here
Yeah,
now.
Molly.
Error.
Molly, what are you
Molly's
doing?
taking over.
I was trying to screenshot all of you because it's so lovely to see how Babette would be so thrilled with this.
Yeah, I've got a screenshot. Burr, my brother's trying to join shortly. You might look out for that message.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I had to come late too. So I don't, you know, it was just this, I admired her a lot too. And her verve and her enthusiasm for life. So thank you so much
Mariah.
for including me, Burr.
Bobby, do you want to unmute yourself, Bobby?
Well, I have very fond memories of Babette. She and Peter were first cousins to my husband, Bill Barnes. And so we saw them often and saw her, her mother, Aunt Patsy, whom we were close to. And this was all in Kansas, Fairway, Kansas. She was always a very happy, nice person to be with, and we'll always remember. I do want to pass on to you something that I just heard about this morning. I don't know, Burr, if you remember Ann Simpson.
Yes.
Yes, well, she lives in Fairway. And so I called her this morning to tell her about Babette. And she said, oh, she was such a wonderful person. And she said she'd just been thinking about her all the time and hoping that she was okay. But she had very, very fond memories of Babette. And I think on 2 occasions, she and I visited her on Orcas. The last time Ann and I were going to Friday Harbor for a bird outing. So she met us at Orcas, I guess. The fair. We were on the ferry. No, she met us at. We were going to Friday Harbor from wherever we were going from, and she met us, and we got off, and she took us to the house and fixed a lovely lunch for us. And then we went back and got on the ferry and continued on to Friday Harbor on the next trip. So Anne asked that she be remembered to you, and expressed her condolences to you. And she said she'll just never forget Babette. She was so special. And I guess none of us will.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and tell Ann thank you from us too.
Okay.
Susanna, do you want to go next, and Peter? I mean,
Sure.
Jack, sorry. Getting my siblings mixed up.
Yeah, well, it was a good slip because we feel that we're family with the Stewarts, even though I have to say it's been more than half a century since we've seen each other.
Yeah.
Face to face. We grew up in Atlanta because my father's first teaching job was at the medical school in Emory. These 2 families, in my mind, were just like a match made in heaven. We were just so close. That's how we felt. And Babette and Peter were like a pseudo aunt and uncle to me. And whenever our parents were so close, and then whenever the families would get together, whether it was at their house or our house, I remember mostly being at the Stewart's house, Burr and Ann and Jack and me would just go zoom off to another room. Jack and Burr had everything in common, and I felt so close to Ann, and we just hung out. And it was like bliss. It was just so fun and comfortable. And then, of course, there'd be the meals and the times when we'd all get together with the parents. Babette and Peter were so special. Babette was a really, really vivacious person, as our mother is. And also, our mother had, I heard the story many times years later that when my parents got married, before they got married, that their agreement was that she was going to support him while he finished getting his PhD, and then he was going to support her so she could get hers, and they were going to work together in the lab side by side because she was always interested in science. And somehow that never happened, and it was a big regret that she had in her life, that she never became a scientist, but she was always so interested in science. And I think her friendship with Babette was really profound in that way, not to mention just the joy and fun and laughter that we all shared. So you guys have imprinted me forever. The Stewart family is part of who I am.
Oh, thank you. That's beautiful. Jack, your turn.
It's been more than half a century, but the memories that I have of Babette I have a number of images in my mind, and in every one she has the biggest smile, just the broadest, most welcoming, generous smile. And also in every memory I have, she is doing something nice to me or for me. She was, I remember no details at this point, but you and I were running around out in the rain somehow and got thoroughly drenched and coming in, and she bringing me this enormous fluffy white towel and just wrapping me in it. I mean, I don't know what I was, 5 or 6, and I remember this fluffy towel and this beautiful woman with this enormous smile, just making me feel loved Burr and I were just like Susanna says, we were, and I'm sure if we were in the same town, we would still be.
That's right.
You guys even looked alike when you were kids. It was like you could have been brothers. I mean, you really looked like brothers.
We really did. We really
felt like
did.
it.
Fortunately for Burr, he grew up better looking than me. But, we started out from a similar place. I remember we used to run around all the time, and I don't really remember any other friend from that time period other than a snatch or a glimpse. And I definitely remember no other friends' parents from that time than Peter and Babette. And I have a lot of memories of them. And you know, I was 5 or 7. And I'm 65 now. That's a long time to remember somebody. And I remember her just making sandwiches for us and giving them to us, and just like, I belong here. You know, that she just made you feel that way, made me feel that way. And so my memories aren't as detailed as most of yours, I suspect, but her smile and her generosity are stuck with me for 60 years.
Jack, Burr, Ann, do you guys know where and when our parents met? Did they meet at Woods Hole because our parents used to go there too, or did they meet at Emory?
I think I remember my dad saying that they met at Emory, but I'm not absolutely positive about that.
No, they were in Saul Spielberg's lab, which I was in the University of Minnesota.
Right.
Right?
Saul Spiegelman? And then they both ended up,
right?
And they both ended up at Emory, and so they were prior friends.
I think they were.
Was your
I'm
father
not positive.
ever?
I might be mixing it up with Lenny.
Was your father ever in Urbana, Illinois?
Yes.
That's where they met then.
That's where they met.
That's where Spiegelman
Jack
was.
and I were born there.
That's where Spiegelman was. This is why we're having this meeting, so we can straighten all this out.
Exactly. Finally, get the
Thank you,
record
Zach.
straight.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spiegelman was at Urbana. Is that right?
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And Peter's mother, who we're going to hear from next, was Babette's best friend at Urbana. And that's how they got to be really close. Peter, you want to go next?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, there's so many Peters around here. Okay, yes. Yeah. It's funny to hear all these other people talk about how their families felt as if they were best friends with the Stewarts, because that's the way we felt.
Right.
Our parents met, all 4 of our parents met at Urbana when they were in grad school.
Right.
I have a couple things I want to remember. Sometime in the early 60s, you guys were in Providence and we were in Philadelphia, and you guys came down to visit. And Burr, you and I were so excited to see each other that we went into my bedroom and we started jumping up and down on the bed. Which of course infuriated my mother. And she came in to yell at us. And I remember Babette coming in and taking her by the elbow and leading her out of the room and closing the door. just so that we could be happy with each other. Jump on the bed. I also want to mention the boat, the one that's going to be rechristened. I've driven that boat.
Hey, you want to drive it again? We're having a party for the boat.
It was probably, well, again, it was the early 70s, because we came up to Crane, and my father's Aunt Alice and Uncle Fred lived on Orcas, and they wanted us to come over for dinner. And the only way for us to get there was to go across the pass by boat. And I was chosen to drive us across during daylight and to bring us back in the dark, because my father was going to have wine with dinner and he wasn't going to drive the boat. So there was this enormous pressure, but also just a wonderful feeling of being trusted and given this responsibility, and everything of course went fine, but it's in my memory to this day. But the most wonderful memory of Beetle, one of them, is when I got to fly up to Crane. I got to leave my family on a road trip in San Jose and fly to Seattle, and then in a 2-seater to Crane, where Burr met me on that dirt grass runway on Crane. And that was the summer that Peter Stewart taught us to swallow beer and burp as loudly as possible. And Babette, crazy trickster that she was reveling in all the ways she could get you to say something to which she would respond. And I'll give you an example. She would say, what are those things the Army has that they drive around on treads? And you would say, tanks. And she would say, you're welcome. What are those, what's that kitchen implement that you use to grab things? Tongs? You're welcome. We had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs. And I think we thought we were the only other family the Stewarts knew.
Can I tell how my dad stole the Stewart car on Crane Island? It must have been when my folks were brand new because they were building the house around 1973. Somebody had said, oh yeah, you can use our car. It's a Ford station wagon. It's over in the Orcas parking lot. If you need a car to go into the hardware store, you can use it. Because I guess my parents had come by boat. Anyway, they didn't have a car. And so my dad goes over and there's a station wagon with the keys in it. So he gets in the car and he commences to drive to the hardware store. Andrew Peter, perhaps also with Babette, saying, well, where's our car? So then Peter, I think uncharacteristically, called the cops to say, somebody's taken our car. And this is at the end of a road. If you've been to the Orcas Crane parking lot, it's in the back and beyond. But anyway, so they called the cops on my dad, who was extremely embarrassed. But I'm sorry I don't have Babette's reaction to all this. It must have been wonderful. That's how they met, actually. That's how I think my parents met the Stewarts on Crane.
That's great. Leo and Sharon, your turn.
Great, thank you so much. It's so exciting filled with wonderful memories to listen to all of this. Yes, this is Sharon, my wife. I'm not a formal member of the family, but I feel a bit like a member of the family because Burr was my best friend in college and still since. So that's more than 45 years ago. And Ann was the best friend for a few years when I was in graduate school. And so I want to share a couple of things, if you don't mind. I'd like to share my screen and just to show you something. Here we have.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is I had interaction with the family way even before this Crane days because of having the privilege of being welcomed by Beadle and Peter at Thanksgivings that occurred in Rhode Island and so on. But after that, in the later years, and at Crane and other places, you can see Fletcher here, and here's somebody that has hair, but this person still wears this same shirt.
That's true.
And Peter seems to be tying his shoelaces, which he did often.
Yeah.
Of course, this is a great example of a Beadle's smile, which has been mentioned, and so many wonderful things have already been mentioned. So there's not a lot more for me to say, but I do want to say that she was just wonderful at welcoming me and into the fold, whether it was eating those sandwiches that were mentioned or other things that we were doing together. Let me actually go back a little bit and maybe show you this picture. So you won't see this unless you very well, but this is a great picture from, I believe, the Providence time when Thanksgivings and so forth were going on. And this one is a great picture of Beadle and Peter sort of, heading back to Orcas or whatever for a run across the water there from the island. I'm sorry to be holding it like that. So many great memories and times when, as I said, I was welcomed into the family. And so I also remember that her moving into that beautiful place with the great staircase that for the sort of faculty people. But in terms of a specific and important point about this interaction with Beadle, her brilliant mind was always clear. She also had strong opinions about things, as mentioned before,
But I want to say that something really important for me, is that they were a couple in the professoriate. Okay, they were both involved with university. They were both not only PhDs but also university professor types. And I didn't know that many of those people. In fact, they were probably the best example for me, basically role models for me, and as my life went on. So that's really my memories about Beadle.
And I must actually tell the truth that for a couple of decades, I thought that she was Beedle, B-E-E-D-L-E, because I couldn't imagine anyone would have named after a bug. I hadn't seen the name written, and so it was always Peter and Beadle. It's like, okay. So I just had to share that.
That was actually Fletcher. I don't know if you ever got to meet Fletcher, but he's the one who had attached that name to her. My grandmother that Bobby referred to as Aunt Patsy actually was known as Googie, also because of Fletcher.
Yeah. Well, the other small interesting point is that Peter and Beadle, essentially one of the few other families in the world that call me Leo, besides my own.
The only two people that haven't spoken, I've been trying to keep track here on a list, are my sister Anne.
And your wife.
And Barbara, thank you. So maybe the two of you could go. Anne, do you want to go first?
Sure. I wanted to bring up a little vignette that happened just a couple of years before she moved off Orcas, because I think it's wonderful that we've had this Zoom meeting, and I was really gratified to hear how many people mentioned her, not just as a friendly person, but as a scientist, because my whole life I would address letters to her, and I'm sure many of you were the recipient. She was a wonderful letter writer. I'm sure you all got many great letters from her throughout knowing her, but I would always address mine to her as Dr. Babette T. Stewart, and she had just gotten a letter from me not long before I visited her one time, and she said, you're the only person who does that. You're the only person who remembers that I'm Dr. Stewart. And I thought that it would be really nice for her if she could only know that many of you remember that she was Dr. Stewart. And then I wanted to mention a couple of things. Some of the pictures you all have shown and the memories you've shared have really brought me back in time. And one of the things that I remember was the very first year we went out there, it was Wayne Thornburg who had brought us out, and we had rented a cabin in Deer Harbor. This is before the Crane years. We found a piece of driftwood and made up a logo, which was the initials for Burr, Wayne, Anne, Peter, and Babette on Orcas, and that read Bwapaboo. We made up a sign on this piece of driftwood that said, "Beware of Bwapaboo." And then they decided to buy on Crane and moved over there, and we said, well, what about the sign? It's not right. And she said, well, just scrape off part of the O and it'll become a C. So then in the sign, for many years, I'm sure Margaret and others remember the sign that said, beware of Wapabach. So that's what that's And then finally, I wanted to remind you of something. It's funny that it was Fletcher. Fletcher was a big part of who Beadle was, and many of you remember him as well. Yeah. But one of the funniest, my mother was constantly singing. She was always singing or humming or whistling.
Right.
And one of the funniest things about this, which I didn't really realize until I was maybe in college, but which my brother can attest to, I'm sure, is that her favorite thing to sing, whistle, or hum was this absolutely filthy Navy song called Barnacle Bill. And she was constantly singing Barnacle Bill. I don't know how many of you remember hearing her sing Barnacle Bill. But she didn't know the real words because Fletcher had taught her this song and he didn't teach her the real words.
That's right.
It was a kind of a family joke that my mother, who was actually, if my father said anything even remotely off key, she would go, Peter! Yeah. And yet she didn't realize how often and unintentionally offensive she was being. So I thought those of you that knew her well would remember her singing that, and maybe even, some of the cousins. So those were vignettes I had, but it was really gratifying for me personally to hear how many of you remember her as a scientist, because that was something that was a big part of who she was. She got a PhD when very few women got PhDs, and it's nice that you remember that. So thank you.
We haven't gone into her role as an early liberated woman, but she got her master's degree at Yale, and she had nothing but bad things to say about the way that the male professors treated her at Yale. It's very interesting, because they said, what's a woman doing being a scientist? All this kind of stuff that she and some of her female friends in science went through just trying to get into the profession. And I'm sure this is played out in many other fields as well. To pick up on a couple things Ann said, there's a large group of people who are not here on the call who were her caretakers in the last 5 or 6 years. And they would all have similar things to say about her. She was their favorite person in the nursing home that she lived in. And she was, like Ann said, always singing. And they found out, to my amazement, that one of her favorite songs to sing and for them to play, and then she would sing, was Pistol Packin' Mama. I never heard her sing Pistol Packin' Mama. We go there, and then, she would sing it. But even
Burr, I'm going to have to go, and I just want to thank you for organizing this, and how wonderful it is to see you and Pam and meet the rest of you. Thank you, and
thanks, Zach. Thank you for being here.
Your mother and father were wonderful people.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming,
Zach.
Okay, Barbara, do you want to say anything?
Okay. Yeah, there are so many things I could choose from. I'm getting inspired by the rest of you. Laurel, you said something that made me think of something in a way similar. The first time I met Burr's parents, we flew to Rhode Island, right?
Right.
They were living in Providence, and I didn't know them at all. And we had lunch, and I asked for some salt, and Beetle went, "Salt?" Like, it was the craziest thing. Well, I found out that Peter had high blood pressure, and they didn't have the habit of having salt, so it wasn't that crazy. But like the first time I met her. But then later on, we had some cute interactions together, because she started to use salt more and more. And so what she'd say, "Pass the salt, please." And I'd say, "Salt?" Sort of cute that we had that. And then it's too bad Zach isn't there, because he brought up that Beetle would say that's not true. And I know the story that she did that in classes that they taught together.
Yes.
And it made me think of Burr, the same for us, that you appreciated so much, that I would say, you would, when we first met, you'd say, "See what I mean?" And I'd say, "No." And you appreciated that, as opposed to, you were like that I didn't pretend that I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say something's not true also. Over time, that probably got a little bit irritating rather than appreciating the honesty. But I think maybe that came from your parents' example. But I do remember her being really gentle, especially when our kids were born. When Robin was born, Peter and Beetle helped, and Beetle made her wonderful custards that we really liked, and just helped in the most helpful ways. Didn't try to take over, but just was very helpful. And then when I was pregnant with Laurel, I was sick, and she helped me a lot. And I remember particularly when I finally was better, and I took a shower and I washed my hair, and she helped me comb it out, and it was like she was really just sweet. So it was nice. That's it.
Well, we're way out of time. That was really beautiful. Is there anyone who didn't get a chance to say something?
What about you?
Yeah.
Well, you've all pretty much said it for me, growing up with these amazing parents. Somebody talked about the love between the two of them. And I always tell people that their relationship was in the top 10% of all relationships. I mean, it was just amazing how much they loved each other. Peter died fairly young. Well, I think he was 72. Is that right? Is that what we figured out the other day?
Oh, yeah.
And they had planned to spend their golden years on Crane Island, but of course he died fairly soon after they retired, like 5 years after they retired.
They had 5 years of really good retirement, and then 5 years after his episode of cerebral anoxia.
Yeah. So, but the main thing is that, you know, I kept thinking, well, you know, she should have another boyfriend or whatever, but she just was so happy that she had known Peter, and she was just very contented with the relationship that she had in her life. And it was a very sweet thing. And she was always felt very lucky and so forth. The other thing I wanted to say, which is sort of on the other spectrum of the scientist side, is that in cleaning up all her material possessions, which I've been involved with now for a number of years, one of the amazing things is how organized she was as a scientist about all her personal life. So she has files. I have all these files she has on every one of you, like any letter you, it's there in a file. Like, so you can just analyze all these relationships she had with all these people that she really cared about, to the point of organizing files for them. And I just find that extraordinary. But anyway, who does that now? But she was definitely a master letter writer. Well, yeah, Ann and I do it. Of course, we would. I mean, I've never heard of anybody else keeping files on.
Yeah, but now we can search our email electronically. And,
yeah, that's true. Now you can just do the search function in your email.
She would also chastise us for not dating things.
Yeah.
So she would say,
oh, that's right.
Thank you. Oh, Laurel, you know what you didn't do. Just didn't write the date.
Didn't write the date. Yeah. Well, we're over time. Thank you all so much for being here. It's been very, very heartwarming.
Show us the picture again, the picture montage that you had, please.
Sure.
It definitely has. It's been so lovely to see all your faces and hear your words. I can't express my appreciation enough.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Burr.
Thank you. Thank you for including us and making this happen.
Before we go, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Margaret?
Yeah?
Are you on Crane?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I think, is your little house right on the rocks by the water?
Yeah, kind of, sort of, looking east toward the ferry landing.
Yep,
There's
because
a field in between
the last time I went to visit Babette on Orcas, you were having a lunch, and the girls took me and Babette over to lunch there, and I was very concerned because I didn't know any of these people, and I kept saying to Babette, is it going to be all right that I'm there? And she kept saying yes. Sort of exasperated with me for even thinking that I might not be welcome. And you guys, all of you, made me so welcome and insisted that I take the last enchilada. So I remember you, and it was great to see you. It's great to see all of you. But that was a wonderful memory of you and of Babette.
I just think that
come along, we're going.
That year of after Peter's departure, which was such a loss, there was some time of sort of a female mafia on Crane. We ate together and hung out together and got to see each other's friends and stuff. It was an amazing place for me to come back to, and it really was a home. Still is.
Yeah.
I have to say that the big old snag that used to have the Wappa Block sign on it actually finally fell down, and I thought that was a deeply symbolic and unfortunate passage, but it was a natural passage. Nobody pushed it over. It just fell down.
Are you seeing my pictures now?
Yeah, this is so cool. Keep going.
This is a very scary Molly Herzog.
Yeah. Gorgeous. Look at this. Oh, nice. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah, yeah. Lunch on Orcas. Oh, that was amazing.
That was a Christmas family tradition. We always wore Stewart plaid on Christmas.
And that Christmas tree was brought to us by Britt, who is the famous lab tech at Emory. And we still use it every Christmas. This is Chris in a visit.
Oh, I didn't know we had that picture.
Yeah.
Look at that. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, there's Wendy. Yeah.
This is Wendy, who I don't think came on, but I invited her.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Hey, Dad, go backwards for a second.
That's the outside of the crane.
Merle made that probably.
Yeah, but fun fact,
No,
nothing to
that's
do with Beetle, but this is the day that I first started texting with Eric.
Really?
Yeah, and we talked about that dish that I was making for her
God.
birthday, because this is her birthday. It's her 90th birthday, I think.
This was her 90th birthday.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
And I made her those sesame noodles and
That's
told Eric about it.
the first day you started your relationship with your husband.
Oh,
Pretty much, yeah.
Cool.
That's a great picture.
We talked about this one already.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, beautiful. That's.
I was really afraid that she would die from getting an infected eye, but she didn't. She just died from general organ failure, which is the way to go. This was a tea party the last time that she was together with the Orcas Island folks, and we had a tea party.
Wonderful.
You know, something that I didn't say when I talked about Babette, but when we were mentioning her as a scientist, is one time she shared with my daughter Julie, who went on to become a medical doctor, about the conference she went to when they discovered, is it Watson? Can't remember, discovered the DNA strand.
Oh.
And that
Babette. Oh, wait, hold the old pictures, please. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Let's go back and look.
Yeah.
Jack didn't get to see them. Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh, nice.
Gorgeous.
That's Babette.
Yes. And the other one with the kids. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's fine. I just wanted, as a scientist, and, she really was an inspiration, I think, and encouraged my daughter to go on and major in science in college. And, she was really blown away when she realized that Babette had been at that presenting conference.
I was blown away too. I fairly it was fairly recently. I mean, I don't know. It wasn't when I was like a kid. She just like kind of as a side note or something, threw that out there that she was like there when like Watson and Crick like presented this, and like that was quite a time, And I was like, what?
And it won't surprise any of you to learn that my primary memory of her reciting that is, what a jerk that guy Crick was.
How about Watson?
That too, yes.
Are you sure she wasn't talking about Watson?
No, I'm not. I can't remember which one it was actually.
It was Watson.
Oh, great picture. Thank you so much.
Love that.
Yeah.
Jack, this is how we remember them, right?
Oh, that's great.
That's how I remember you guys, for sure. I mean, you're not in the picture, but at that age.
That's the time, absolutely.
See that attitude?
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that attitude right there. That was fairly recently. Everybody just loved her. She was always giving them a bad time about something. This is up. Can you see my pointer?
Yeah.
This is the famous picture of them in the lab together at Brown.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the things that she was actually well known for is that she was very interested in spores, like mold spores, but fern spores as well. And she opened the field of spore physiology because people had thought they were completely inert, and she showed that they had enzymes in them. That was one of the things she did for her PhD thesis.
Wow. Wow.
So it wasn't sporing?
I wonder she knew there were ink blots in the in the bacteria or whatever that was.
Yeah,
I feel like, Dad, I have one other one-liner that makes sense to share in the context of her being a scientist, and I definitely think and will always remember her as a scientist, and so I think that's great to know that she would have wanted that. But when I had my first boyfriend, and I was 17, she found out that it had been a while, we'd been dating for a year or something, and she said, well, your dad said it's getting serious, and I had to sign her on the phone. I don't remember why this conversation was happening in the first place. And she said, I hear your boyfriend and you are getting very serious. And I said, yeah. And she said, he's not religious, is he?
Oh, that's
the most antithetical grandma like response that anyone would expect to have.
Please God.
And I was like, no, he's not.
Well, any last minute calls for stories, or we can wrap this up.
Can we do this regularly? I love it.
Yeah, Burr, this has been wonderful.
I want to share a picture if I'm not sure. Can you see it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, I learned how to share.
Wow.
What a great shot.
That's a nice one, huh?
And the bicycle, is that the bicycle in the background? What's that thing in the back?
Right here.
Oh,
No, that's the paper towel roll. I think that's
Paper towel.
I think that's
Yeah,
in
that
paper
Carolyn's
towel.
kitchen.
Okay, too
And
bad.
a beer.
Looks like
Burr,
Thank
thank you so much for doing
Yeah,
this.
thank you. Really great to hear all your stories.
All right, thank you all. It's been really fun.
We love you all.
This has
Thank
been
you.
really lovely.
Yeah, yeah, we'll always remember.
Let's keep in touch.
Bye, Laurel. Bye, Rob.
Ooh, Chris, good technique.
Nice to see you guys.
It's under reactions.
Drumbone, drumbone.
Yeah.
Wonderful to see you all.
I know.
Bye.